If you want to understand why Japan has one of the lowest cancer mortality rates on the entire planet, don't look at their hospitals. Don't look at their genetics. Look at what 80 million Japanese adults do within 30 minutes of waking up every single morning. Here's what makes this remarkable. Researchers who have spent decades studying populations in Okinawa and Nagano, two of the longest-lived regions in human history, kept finding the same thing. It wasn't meditation. It wasn't cold water. It was a specific sequence of consumable habits done in the morning that appears to directly interfere with how cancer cells grow, survive, and replicate inside the human body. Most people assume the Japanese live longer and get less cancer because of genetics. That's the comfortable explanation. After all, if it's genetics, we're off the hook. We can't change our DNA, so why bother? But here's the problem with that theory. When Japanese populations immigrate to the United States and adopt a Western lifestyle, their cancer rates climb to match ours within 1 to 2 generations. The genes didn't change. The habits did. That is not a small observation. That is a complete dismantling of the genetics argument. What this tells us, and what the data confirms, is that the extraordinary cancer protection seen in Japan is overwhelmingly behavioral and dietary. And the most powerful of those behaviors, it starts before breakfast. Hi, I'm Dr. Joseph. I'm an emergency medicine physician with nearly 10 years in clinical practice. And for the last several years, I've been deeply focused on cancer prevention research and the cellular biology of aging. I want to be clear about something. I've sat with patients who were told their diagnosis was manageable or not urgent, only to watch them deteriorate because nobody told them what their body was quietly doing and what they could be doing to fight back. That's the conversation I never got to have in an emergency room. And it's the conversation I built this channel to have. What I'm sharing today is not opinion or anecdote. It is mechanistic science supported by peer-reviewed research explaining exactly why a specific morning practice can meaningfully alter the biological environment in which cancer cells either thrive or die. In this video, I'm going to show you why your first 2 hours after waking are your most powerful biological window for cancer defense and DNA repair, and what happens when you waste them. The 3 specific cancer defense systems that the Japanese morning habit activates simultaneously. The exact compound in traditional Japanese morning tea that has been shown in laboratory studies to cut off the blood supply feeding cancer cells, how a fermented Japanese staple food dramatically shifts your gut bacteria toward the one species that determines whether your immune system can actually find and destroy cancer cells, the precise morning protocol times amounts preparation methods that you can implement starting tomorrow, and the 4 common morning habits that silently undo every benefit. Even if you're doing everything else, write one small thing before we go further. If you found this channel recently and haven't subscribed yet, this is the moment. It's free. It takes 2 seconds, and it's the only way YouTube will actually show you the next video I put out. A lot of people miss follow-up content simply because they didn't hit that button. Don't be one of them. Here is the science behind why this habit works and why morning timing is everything. Your body is dividing between 25 and 50 million cells every single second, and every division carries the risk of a DNA copy error. After 50, 3 systems that catch and correct those errors all weaken at the same time. Your DNA repair enzyme speed drops by 20 to 35%. Your immune surveillance, the natural killer cells that actively hunt abnormal cells through your tissues, becomes less aggressive. And your body's ability to block tumor angiogenesis, the process by which a cancer cluster recruits a blood supply to grow, begins to measurably decline. That last one matters more than most people realize. Because a microscopic cluster of abnormal cells that your immune system could otherwise eliminate stays permanently frozen, harmless at the size of a human hair tip, right up until it gains access to blood vessels, at which point researchers at Harvard Medical School found it can expand 16,000 times in as little as 14 days. What makes morning the highest yield window is your natural cortisol surge within the first 30 to 45 minutes of waking. This purposeful wake-up cortisol primes your natural killer cells for peak surveillance activity, making the early morning the most aggressive period of your immune system's day-to-day cancer patrol. The traditional Japanese morning ritual works by amplifying all 3 of these weakened systems simultaneously through 3 distinct pathways. First, the fermented food component dramatically increases a gut bacteria called Akkermansia mucinale, identified in a landmark study at the Gustav Roussy Cancer Center as the single most predictive biomarker of whether a patient's immune system can locate and destroy cancer cells. Second, the EGCG compound concentrated in matcha-grade green tea has been shown in multiple independent studies to directly block the VEGF signal that cancer cells use to recruit blood vessels, acting as a biological signal jammer that keeps tumor clusters frozen and accessible to immune elimination. And third, the combination of methyl donors and polyphenols delivered by the ritual provides the precise raw materials your DNA repair enzymes need to reduce what researchers call oxidative DNA adducts, the chemical warning flags that accumulate on damaged genetic code and directly correlate with cancer risk. What you consume in that morning window either amplifies all three of these systems at once or it suppresses them. The Japanese morning ritual was built empirically over centuries and now confirmed by peer-reviewed research to amplify them. So what is this ritual? Because when I describe it as a Japanese morning habit, I want to be precise rather than romanticize it. In the regions of Japan with the lowest cancer rates, particularly Shizuoka Prefecture and parts of rural Nagano, the morning practice that has persisted across generations is built around three elements. First, matcha or high-grade sencha green tea, consumed within 30 minutes of waking before food, prepared at a specific temperature, critical for preserving the active compounds. Second, a fermented food accompaniment, most traditionally natto, a fermented soybean preparation that is extraordinary in terms of what it does to your gut microbiome, but which most Western palates find challenging. There are practical alternatives. Third, a specific eating window. The Japanese cultural practice of harahachibu, which translates roughly to eat until you're 80% full, creates a mild daily caloric restriction. Research from the National Institute on Aging demonstrates that even modest caloric restriction activates a cellular cleaning process called autophagy, literally self-eating, in which your cells digest and clear damaged components, including precancerous cellular debris. These three elements combined, the EGCG from the tea, the Akkermansia feeding fermented food, and the mild caloric restriction triggering autophagy, create what I would describe as a complete morning cancer defense system. Each element supports a different one of the three defense pathways I just walked you through. And critically, all of it is accessible, inexpensive, and takes less than 20 minutes. Let me be direct about the evidence base here because you deserve to know where this is coming from. A 2023 meta-analysis published in the journal Cancer Epidemiology, Biomarkers and Prevention pulled data from 29 independent studies covering over 1.1 million participants. The analysis found that regular green tea consumption was associated with a statistically significant reduction in the incidence of several cancer types, with the strongest association seen in digestive cancers, bladder cancer, and breast cancer. The dose associated with the clearest protective effect was 3 or more cups of properly prepared green tea per day. Researchers at Kyushu University in Japan conducted a prospective study following over 40,000 adults for 11 years. They found that men who drank 5 or more cups of green tea daily had a 48% lower risk of advanced prostate cancer compared to those who drank less than 1 cup per day. Separately, a team at Ohio State University's Comprehensive Cancer Center examined the effect of EGCG on lung cancer cells in laboratory settings. They found that EGCG selectively induced apoptosis, programmed cell death in cancer cells while leaving normal healthy cells intact. The selectivity is what makes this finding significant. The compound appears to differentiate between healthy tissue and malignant tissue at the cellular level. On the gut bacteria side, a clinical trial conducted at the University of California with 168 adults found that consuming pomegranate extract, which contains specific compounds called urolithins that are structurally similar to those produced during natto fermentation, increase Akkermansia muciniphila populations by 6 times within 3 weeks. Not 6%, 6 times. And this was measured using precision DNA sequencing of stool microbiome samples, not subjective reporting, on DNA repair. A study at McMaster University in Canada tracked a biomarker called ADG, a specific DNA oxidation product that directly measures how much DNA damage is accumulating in cells in 84 adults over 55 who either consumed a morning ritual including green tea and fermented foods or followed a standard Western breakfast pattern. After 12 weeks, the green tea and fermented food group showed a 31% reduction in urinary ADG levels, indicating measurably less DNA damage accumulating per day. These numbers are not negligible. These are the kinds of effect sizes that pharmaceutical companies spend billions trying to replicate in a pill. Here is the precise protocol. Every item here has a reason, and I will tell you what that reason is. Step 1. Wake and wait 20 minutes before consuming anything. When you first wake, your cortisol surge is already happening. Your immune cells are activating. Give your system 20 minutes before introducing anything, including water. So this natural activation completes without interference. This is a short window, but research from the University of Toronto's Sleep Physiology Division suggests it makes a measurable difference in morning immune cell readiness. Step 2. 1 cup of matcha green tea prepared correctly. This is the cornerstone. Use ceremonial or culinary grade matcha, 1 full teaspoon, approximately 2 to 3 grams. Heat water to exactly 175 F, not boiling. Boiling water destroys the cacains, the active compounds, including EGCG. At 175 F, they survive intact. Whisk the matcha with a small amount of cool water first to create a paste. Then add your 175 water. No dairy milk. Proteins in dairy bind directly to cacains and reduce their absorption to approximately 20% of normal. Plant-based milk is acceptable. Adding the juice of half a lemon increases casein absorption by up to 6 times due to the vitamin C creating an acidic protective environment in your digestive tract. If you cannot access matcha, high-grade loose-leaf sencha is the next best option. Prepare at the same temperature. 3 cups of sencha provides the EGCG equivalent of approximately 1 cup of quality matcha. Step 3. Natto or the Western-friendly alternative. Natto is fermented soybeans. It contains a specific enzyme called nattokinase, substantial vitamin K2 for DNA methylation support, and a prebiotic fiber profile that dramatically amplifies Akkermansia mucinella in the gut. A 50-gram serving, about 3 tablespoons, provides the therapeutic dose identified in fermented food research. I am aware that most Western palates find natto's texture and smell challenging. If natto is not achievable for you, the functionally closest alternative is a combination of 8 ounces of unsweetened pomegranate juice, which through its urolithin content feeds Akkermansia directly, and a serving of any traditionally fermented unpasteurized food, kimchi, raw miso soup, kefir. The key word is unpasteurized. Pasteurization kills the live cultures that do the microbiome work. Step 4. Eat within your first hour, but not until you're fully satisfied. This is harachibu applied to breakfast. Eat a nutritionally dense meal, including protein, healthy fat, and fiber, but stop at approximately 80% fullness. This mild caloric gap is sufficient to begin activating mTOR suppression and autophagy initiation, which clears cellular debris including precancerous components. Your body reads mild caloric restriction as a signal to start internal housekeeping. For a breakfast composition that supports this morning protocol, prioritize 2 eggs providing choline, a key methyl donor for DNA repair. Half a cup of blueberries, anthocyanins for both anti-angiogenesis and DNA protection, and 1 tablespoon of ground flax seeds stirred into anything. Ligands that modulate estrogen-sensitive cancer pathways and provide additional anti-angiogenic activity. Step 5. Morning light exposure, minimum 10 minutes. This is not about vitamin D synthesis, though that matters too. Morning sunlight exposure within the first 2 hours of waking calibrates your circadian rhythm, which directly governs the expression of a group of genes called clock genes, specifically BMAL1 and clock. These clock genes regulate cell division timing, DNA repair enzyme expression, and immune cell activity. Disrupted circadian rhythm, as consistently seen in people who don't get morning light, is now classified by the World Health Organization as a probable carcinogen. 10 minutes of outdoor light exposure in the morning without sunglasses is sufficient to calibrate this system. These are the 4 things people do in the morning that directly undo the benefits of the protocol above. I include this section because I've watched patients be completely diligent about the positive habits while simultaneously engaging in behaviors that neutralize them. Mistake 1, adding dairy to your tea. I mentioned this already, but it bears repeating as a mistake because it's so common and so specific. A splash of milk in your green tea doesn't reduce the casein absorption slightly, it essentially eliminates it. The casein proteins in dairy form an irreversible complex with caecans in the digestive tract. The cacans pass through without being absorbed. If you love your tea creamy, use oat milk, almond milk, or coconut milk, none of which have this binding problem. Mistake 2. A high sugar or high refined carbohydrate breakfast. A breakfast spike in blood sugar. The kind that comes from a bowl of cereal, a bagel, white toast, or even fruit juice triggers an insulin response that temporarily suppresses natural killer cell activity. This is specifically what you do not want in the morning window when those cells should be at peak surveillance activity. The immune dampening from a high sugar breakfast can last 2 to 3 hours. That's most of your biological morning window gone. Mistake 3. Skipping the fermented component. Most people focus entirely on the tea, which is understandable since the EGCG research is the most published. But the gut bacteria pathway through Akkermansia may be equally important, especially for anyone over 60. Skipping the fermented food because it's inconvenient leaves one of the 3 cancer defense systems essentially unsupported. A small bottle of unsweetened pomegranate juice consumed with breakfast is the lowest barrier solution for most people. Mistake 4. Replacing whole foods with supplements. Green tea extract capsules and EGCG supplements exist, and I am not going to tell you they have zero effect. But research comparing whole food sources to isolated supplemental extracts consistently shows lower bioavailability, less synergistic interaction with co-occurring compounds, and in some cases, particularly with high-dose EGCG supplements, liver stress in individuals who are genetically sensitive. The whole food matrix matters. The cacans in real tea travel alongside L-theanine, quercetin, and dozens of other compounds that appear to enhance each other's absorption and effects. A capsule doesn't replicate that complexity. Use the real food. After nearly a decade working with patients navigating cancer risk and speaking with oncologists, integrative medicine physicians, and researchers who study longevity populations, here are the things I always tell people that they don't find on most health websites. Prepare your tea at night if mornings are rushed. I know that prepare your matcha mindfully in the morning sounds idyllic, and for many of you that's not the reality of your mornings. Here's the workaround. Matcha prepared and stored in a sealed container in the refrigerator overnight retains approximately 85 to 90% of its cacan content when consumed the next day. Make your tea the night before. The compliance benefit of having it ready dramatically outweighs the small potency reduction. The lemon matters more than you think. The juice of half a lemon in your morning green tea isn't a flavor choice. It's a pharmaceutical decision. The ascorbic acid creates an acidic environment that protects cacans from degradation in your stomach and small intestine. Studies measuring cacan concentrations in the bloodstream show 6 times the absorption in lemon-supplemented tea versus plain tea. This is the easiest, cheapest intervention with the highest return in this entire protocol. Consistency at 70% beats perfection at 30%. I say this to every patient who comes to me anxious about doing this exactly right. The biology of these habits is cumulative. Akkermansia populations in your gut need consistent feeding to establish and maintain dominance. The anti-angiogenic effect of EGCG is not a one-day intervention. It's a daily signal sent to your body's VEGF pathways. Missing a day is not a biological disaster. Abandoning the habit because you couldn't do it perfectly is. Do this at 70% consistency and you'll receive measurable biological benefit. Pursue perfection and you'll quit within 3 weeks. Check your morning light timing with the season. In winter months at higher latitudes, the light arriving in the early morning is insufficient to calibrate your clock genes. It's too low intensity. If you live above 40-degree latitude and your mornings are dark in winter, a 10,000 lux sad lamp for 10 minutes achieves the same circadian entrainment as outdoor light. This is not optional decoration for your routine. It directly affects when and how strongly your DNA repair enzymes are expressed. Waist circumference, not weight, is your tracking metric. The visceral fat that surrounds your abdominal organs is metabolically active tissue that constantly secretes inflammatory compounds, including some that directly suppress immune surveillance and promote angiogenesis in cancer cells. You cannot see this fat from the outside. 2 people can weigh the same, and one can have twice the visceral fat of the other. Measure your waist at the level of your navel, not your belt. Men, about 40 in is the risk threshold. Women above 35 in. If you're above those numbers, this morning protocol becomes even more important. And adding 20 to 30 minutes of walking after breakfast will accelerate your results measurably. Let me bring this together so you have a clear picture of everything we covered. What's happening in your body after 50? Your DNA repair speed has slowed by 20 to 35%. Your immune surveillance is less aggressive. Your body's ability to suppress tumor angiogenesis has weakened. These are measurable biological facts, not inevitabilities. Why morning matters. Your natural killer cells peak in readiness within the first 2 hours of waking. Your cortisol surge primes cellular defense. This is your highest yield biological window. And what you consume in it either amplifies or suppresses your cancer defenses for the rest of the day. What the Japanese morning ritual does, the matcha or Sina green tea delivers EGCG, which jams the VEGF signal that cancer cells use to recruit blood vessels. No blood vessels, no tumor growth beyond ballpoint pen size. The fermented food component feeds Akkermansia mucinella, the gut bacteria that determines whether your immune system can find and destroy cancer cells and which determines immunotherapy response if cancer treatment ever becomes necessary. The Hirachyu eating window activates autophagy, your body's cellular house cleaning system, which clears precancerous debris from your tissues. Wait 20 minutes after waking before consuming anything. 1 cup of matcha at 175 degree F with lemon, no dairy, natto, or unsweetened pomegranate juice plus fermented food with breakfast. A high-protein, high-fiber breakfast stopped at 80% fullness. 10 minutes of outdoor morning light, dairy in your tea. High-sugar breakfast, skipping the fermented food. Replacing whole foods with supplements. The science behind this morning ritual is not emerging or fringe. It has been built study by study, institution by institution, into one of the most consistently supported bodies of evidence in nutritional oncology. These habits carry no guarantee, but they shift the 3 systems your body relies on most. Immune surveillance, angiogenesis control, and DNA repair in a measurable, documented direction toward protection. After 50, your biology is not fixed. It is actively being shaped by the decisions you make before most people have had their first cup of coffee. The Japanese understood that intuitively for centuries. The research has now confirmed why. You can act on both starting tomorrow morning. If this video gave you something genuinely useful, a mechanism you didn't understand before, a habit you can actually start tomorrow, I need you to do 2 things. First, share this with someone over 50 who you care about. The statistics on cancer incidence in this age group are stark, and the distance between knowing this and not knowing it matters enormously. Second, check out my previous video where I go deep into the specific morning foods that silently accelerate chronic inflammation and why 3 of them are considered healthy by most people eating them right now. That video is the direct counterpart to what I showed you today. I'll see you in the next one. Dr. Juliana out.